And welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And this week we're going to meet the State Auditor.
State Auditor and Inspector, Mr. Steve Burrage, a longtime friend. It just makes me grin to think he's going to be on because he's been a friend of mine for many, many years. He's been recently appointed to that position by Governor Henry after the prior State Auditor ran into a little difficulty and criminal difficulty. And Steve, as I know, hit the ground running with the work of the office, and we're going to find out how he's getting along and what he's doing and how he's enjoying it.
Should be an interesting show. We'll learn more about the role that the auditor plays in our elective process and also how they're involved in the conduction of daily business at the state. We'll be right back. You're watching The Verdict.
What if America had its own clean energy? Abundant and available for the next century or more, and possibly indefinitely. A true 21st century energy source would cut carbon emissions in half and do every living thing a world of good. That clean American energy exists. It's natural gas, and Chesapeake is its #1 explorer. For producing clean electricity and fueling our cars without imported oil, natural gas saves money and the environment. Proving the answer to this country's energy needs is right under our feet, and we're not running out. Clean, abundant, affordable, American natural gas. Doing a world of good for our communities, our economy, and our irreplaceable planet Earth.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today, as indicated in the first segment, I'm particularly pleased to welcome a friend to the show, Steve Burrage, our new State Auditor and Inspector, recently appointed by Governor Henry. Steve did his undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma in accounting. He's a CPA, and he has done public accounting work as well. He was in the banking industry for about 25 or so years. In the First State Bank of Antlers, and has now moved on to be the State Auditor and Inspector. This is his first visit to our show, but we certainly hope not his last. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Very happy to be here.
Now, you're the second Burrage to be on this show. Mike is your brother?
Mike is my older brother.
And Mike, as a sitting federal judge, came on The Verdict.
Yes.
Did he warn you about anything
No,
you need to know?
he told me just act right.
That sounds like something he'd say.
Well, how about the first few months in office? How's that going?
It's been extremely busy, getting to know my staff and letting them get to know me, understanding the workings of the State Auditor's office. I was somewhat familiar with it because I used to do a lot of governmental private auditing, and familiar with the auditor's office and how we're funded, you know, what we're required to do, but and the legislative process. I've got a bill that I went over this morning in committee, and it passed out of committee with no nay votes, so that's good. So,
well, I have a bunch of questions. What's the role of the state auditor as defined?
Mayor, the role of the state auditor is we audit all 77 counties. We audit the county treasurer, the county clerk, the assessor, commissioners, and render an opinion on the financial statements of the county.
How often?
We're required to do it once a year.
Do you do performance audits?
Yes, but then we also we audit all the state agencies, and we audit them, and we do the comprehensive audit for the total state of Oklahoma.
Okay. Now, who can ask for an audit and get one?
Well, generally speaking, a district attorney can ask for one. Certainly, the attorney general can ask for one. And those I suppose you're talking about investigative audits.
Well, anyone that could start an audit. They say, I think this ought to be audited, and you all follow up with that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's break audits down into two types.
Okay.
Financial performance audits that are required to be done on an annual basis. Special audits or investigative audits that are done to determine if a fraud has been committed. On the special or investigative audits, a governing board can call for it, the attorney general can call for it, or a district attorney can call for it, or you can get one called by way of petition. The other audits we do are primarily to render opinions on the financial statements of the entity that we're auditing. And a lot of state agencies receive federal funds. And we are required to do the audits for the federal government on the agencies that receive federal funds. Generally speaking, any agency that disperses more than $500,000 is required to have, quote, an A133 or Yellow Book audit under governmental accepted auditing standards. And we render those opinions and do the compliance and the financial audit on those agencies.
Do you have the staffing to get into the efficiency levels and say, you know, I think they do a pretty good job, but they could probably be more efficient. Let's get in there and see if we can't help them determine how.
Yes, I mean, we do those type of audits. I am very short on staff right now.
I can imagine.
We're probably down to the lowest level of FTEs that the office has been down to. In
Full-time employees.
Full-time employees in several years. In the hiring process, I won't hire anybody unless they got an accounting degree or the equivalent thereof. Yeah. But and hopefully they have on their future plans to obtain enough hours to set for the CPA exam, which now is 150 hours or the equivalent of a master's degree. There's a lot of competition out there for auditors. I cannot compete in the salary market with the private sector, but I do offer a very good benefit package to my employees that helps out, you know, in hiring them. I require my staff to adhere to the same principles that I have to adhere to. That's prescribed by the Code of Conduct of the American Institute of CPAs. And that goes to independence, you know, integrity, and you know, things like that. They have to adhere to the same standards I do.
I know I'm dominating the questions,
No,
but one
all right.
more. In a flow chart, whom do you report to, if anyone? Just the citizens who elected you, or do you report to the governor?
No, I report to the taxpayers.
So I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
for those out there who might just think everybody in state government reports to the governor.
No,
You report to the people that elected you.
I report to the people that elected me. Now, if I issue an audit opinion, it will be addressed to a specific board, you know, and with the findings included in the report and stuff like that, but I report to the taxpayers.
I have noticed, maybe I noticed it more since you've been out there than I did before, but it seems like there isn't a week goes by that I don't see a newspaper article that brings up some controversy or some discussion about a particular agency or employee or something, and the last line of the story is, and we've asked the State Auditor and Inspector's office to look into this. How many employees do you have, considering your heavy workload?
I have approximately 124 employees right now.
And how many of them would be considered qualified auditors or inspectors?
I have a division we call special audits, and there's 5 auditors in that division right now.
But I'm just wondering how you manage all this work you've got. I mean, you got to do.
It's not as difficult as it looks on the surface. I have very qualified investigative auditors. Of course, I have myself and my deputy Michelle Day, which she's an attorney. So we overlook the process, and I have a director over that area, a gentleman named Ricky Branch, that has been there for, I think, approximately 20 years, and he's very knowledgeable of the of all the inner workings of generally speaking, of whoever we're asked to to go look at.
About 30 seconds left in this segment. When you took office, did you clean house, so to speak? Did you bring in your own people?
No, I did not. Yeah. I did not. I'd already been informed that the office was functioning the best it could under the circumstances. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when I got there, I found that I had a competent staff. They're unclassified employees. Michelle Day, who was the acting auditor, had done a very good job of making sure that the work product that came out of that office was still a quality product, even under the circumstances they had to work under.
Let me get us to a break. We're visiting with Steve Burrage. He's the auditor for the state of Oklahoma. We'll be right back. You're watching The Verdict.
This cane is called For All the Grandfathers, and I dedicate it to my grandfather, Franklin Allen. Me and him just had like a spiritual thing where I just learned lessons from him without him telling me anything. The 3 dots on the feather represent my immediate family, and as my grandfather told me about the Chickasaws, that family is the most important thing. To me, the eagle sees everything, as our elders do, also representing my grandfather and his bravery in the Korean War. I actually just started on the wings for the eagles, and that's when my mother called and told me that he passed away. He took his journey. It's like somebody watching you when nobody's there. I guess he wanted me to finish it, so I finished it. He's been with me ever since. It shows how strong a Chickasaw family can be.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma Realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Steve Burrage is our guest. Kent?
Steve, you've got a lot of employees, you got a lot of expenses. How is your office funded?
Well, our office is not a fully appropriated agency. We get an appropriation of about 46% of our budget, which is around $14 million. And the other 54% we have to earn. We run it just like a public accounting firm. Whatever level of expertise in my staff is billed at a specific rate, and you know, we get paid from the various agencies and the counties we audit. The problem I have is that a lot of the counties cannot pay for their audits. Each county receives 1/10 of 1 mil for their audit fee. Well, the larger counties I get paid in, but most of the smaller counties it won't even pay a fraction of the audit costs.
So the 1/10 of the mill levy is just not enough to reimburse you for the cost of the office?
No, I lose about $1.7 million a year on county audits of billings that I can't collect.
Generally, what number, how many counties is the mill levy high enough to pay for the services, and how many is not?
Probably about 5 or 6.
Really?
Cleveland, Oklahoma County, Tulsa County, Canadian County.
So the more densely populated,
yes.
obviously.
Well, the two large counties, Tulsa and Oklahoma County, I don't even use all the 1/10 of 1 mil, and I return that back to that Pacific County's general fund.
What do you do on an investigative audit? Do you bill the people
Yes.
that you're investigating?
Once we're asked to go in and do an investigative audit, we go in and assess what has happened, and we try to determine an estimate of what it's going to cost that entity for that audit. I enter into an engagement letter with them, specifying what our estimated costs are going to be, and we start the audit. But a lot of times there's no money left. I mean, you know, and I don't get paid. We've here of late, we're working on one right now that is probably gonna, the abuse is probably gonna reach $500,000. We had a county this summer where the abuse led to a loss of $600,000. We had one earlier in the year where the abuse reached $1 million. It's estimated that from a Wells report that 6 to 7% of all public funds are lost to abuse or fraud. And in Oklahoma, federal and state dollars, we expend about $15 billion. So in Oklahoma, that equates to $900 million.
Annually?
Annually, yes.
Are you still the principal regulator of the abstract industry?
No, the abstractors were moved out under their own board in 2007.
Okay.
I bet you're glad about that.
Yes, I don't know why that was ever that way.
Do you have any particular state agencies that you supervise or license like your office used to deal with the abstract companies?
No, we are not a regulator for anybody. We're not a regulator.
Now, how does Steve Burrage, of a course of a week, spend most of your time? What do you actually do?
Right now, I'm talking to the legislator quite a bit. Right. I review every audit that leaves that office. I give a lot of talks around, you know, to county governments and other entities, but you know, I just make sure my staff is fully prepared to do an audit. Make sure they're up on all the standards. We're having a tremendous amount of new standards that have been implemented and that are in the process of being implemented as a result of you know, Enron and stuff like that falls over into the governmental sector. You know, we had all the new standards just like Sarbanes-Oxley came out for a publicly traded company. We have those same new standards from the GAO and the standard-setting bodies that we have to comply with.
Now, let me ask you to kind of walk us through, only very generally, not real specifically, an audit. You start out looking at the books and records of the company and come to some preliminary conclusion. Then what do you do?
Well, to define the audit process to you, we first have to define our scope of the entity. One of the first things we do, we go in and perform what's called a risk assessment. to see what areas have a higher risk of something that we need to look at and lower risk. Then we develop an audit program. We go in and do a study and evaluation of the control environment in that entity, the internal controls. How are they safeguarding the taxpayers' assets? And then we apply the specific standards, you know, to each of those areas and render an opinion on compliance with those issues and the financial statements of that entity in our audit opinion.
Now, when you're pretty much finished your work and you think you know where you are, do you give the agency a chance to look at it and to come in and talk to you about it before you finally issue it formally?
There's a dialogue all the way through the audit process. Okay. But then we issue our draft report. And we give it to the agency. We explain our findings, and then we give them time to respond to our findings, you know, to hear their side of it. We go over each finding with them. They respond to it, and then that's when we issue the audit report.
From time to time, you'll hear a discussion about should the auditor's position be an elected position or appointed position? Do you have a view, and has it changed since you took office?
You know, I go back and forth on this issue, Mayor. You know, a lot of appointments are good. Good people are appointed. Obviously, I was appointed, so you know they're not all bad.
That's a pretty example.
yeah, good. But you know, an appointed position, sometimes, you know, they could yield to influence or something like that. The main thing I would like to see is if it's an elective office, that there be some qualifications for somebody to run for this office.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe having to be a CPA?
Yes, having to be a CPA.
Now, you are a CPA, right?
Yes,
but
I
that's
am.
not typical of our recent history.
I am the first CPA in approximately 30 years to hold this office. I'm not only a CPA, but I do have my permit to practice public accounting.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, you've been on the board of the Oklahoma City Federal Reserve Bank. Mm-hmm. You were president of the Oklahoma Bankers Association.
Yes.
You've held a number of other financial type offices. So
yes.
You come in, I suspect you're the most qualified state auditor we've had. Let me ask you this. What would you want our viewers, the Oklahoma viewing public, to know about your office? How would you like to?
Well, what
would you like to say to them?
What I want the viewing public and the taxpayers of Oklahoma to know, that it is in my intent to operate this office in a professional manner. It is my intent that the people that are employed by my office are qualified and competent enough to look after the taxpayers' money for the state of Oklahoma. And that I'm going to run an office in conformity with the Code of Conduct of the American Institute of CPAs, just like a private public accounting firm has to run their office. Mm-hmm. And it's my intent to be the best accounting firm in the state.
Well, Steve, we appreciate your time that you've given us today, and I think we've all learned more about the state auditor's position.
Thank you very much for having me.
You'll get there if you're not there already.
Okay.
Kent and I'll be back with the final word right after this.
It's time to meet the new people in power.
The people responsible for our energy future.
It's you.
It's me. All of us together.
From now on, we're the people in power.
OG&E will supply the power.
It's how we apply the power that counts.
We've got to use electricity smarter,
wiser,
cleaner,
better. So we've got to be informed,
equipped,
prepared,
committed.
From now on.
Look, nobody wants to waste energy. Nobody wants to build new power plants.
Nobody wants to pay more for electricity.
But nobody wants to give up their way of life.
We don't have to.
If we just use positive energy together.
I'll take advantage of off-peak hours.
That means cutting energy use from 1 to 7 every day.
Every day.
I'm going to sign up for more and more wind power.
We'll take advantage of the high-tech tools coming soon from OG&E.
OG&E can't do it alone.
It's you and OG&E working together. Find dozens of ways you can help at OGE.com.
A positive energy future is in our power.
together.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And we are back, wrapping up the show with Steve Burrage, the state auditor in Oklahoma.
Eminently qualified as a banker, as a regulator, as a CPA with lots of experience in all these areas, and of course integrity without question. So he's just the man we need.
Web address for more information on that office, sai.state.ok.us. And of course our web address where you can give us an idea for a show, theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week on another show of The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.